Welcome back to It Can Be You with Jordana, where I speak to entrepreneurs and trailblazers in a soul-to-soul conversation to uncover the why behind their success and what's led them to where they are today, because it too can be you. Today we're going to be speaking to Marielle Miller, who's the founder of Complice. I'm excited to have her in studio today because she's someone who's unapologetically herself, always leads with her spirituality, even through the toughest hurdles that she's overcome in life. I cannot wait for all of you to meet her. I always say, I don't just say things, I act on them. And I think that's really important. I actually had a really interesting scenario today where I was getting my hair done before coming to, do the show. And she was talking to me about something. And then I told her, oh my God, when I come back in April, I'm going to do my hair with you. I'm going to send people to you. And she goes, you don't have to say stuff like that to me. You don't have to promise things. And I'm like, no. I'm like, you don't know me. But once you get to know me, you're going to realize that everything I'm saying, I don't just say things to say things. I think that's pointless. I really will act on this, and you will see it through my actions. So I think that's really important because I think we're living in a world where it's very easy to talk, but not many people act. We only have our words, our integrity, and our character. And once you break that, who are you, right? What are you? And I think that's very important to remember always in everything you do.
There's nothing I love more than a dumb blonde with daddy's plastic.
I know, he gets excited when he
Did you see this one? We just got it in yesterday.
Oh, is this low viscosity rayon?
Yes, of course.
With a half loop top stitching on the hem?
Absolutely. It's one of a kind.
It's impossible to use a half loop top stitching on low viscosity rayon. It would snag the fabric. And you didn't just get it in. I saw it in the June Vogue a year ago. So if you're trying to sell it to me for full price, you picked the wrong girl.
I'm sorry, are you here to see me?
No, silly. I go here.
You go where?
Harvard. Law school.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard? It is with passion, courage of conviction, and strong sense of self that we take our next steps into the world. Remembering that first impressions are not always correct. You must always have faith in people. And most importantly, you must always have faith in yourself.
We've just seen a clip of Legally Blonde, and it really does take me back to being a female founder. When people first meet me, they assume that I'm just a nice girl who is just gonna kind of do what I have to do to almost please them in a sense. But what they don't realize is even though, yes, I'm always smiling and it is something that I love to do because I'm a very happy person, and yes, I'm very kind, I am actually a very strong woman. And once I set my mind to something, I do it all the way, and I make sure that the results are things sometimes that are out of the ordinary, extraordinary. So that's something that I take a lot of pride in. And I always say kindness should never be mistaken as a weakness. Actually, in retrospect, kindness is a superpower, and it's actually what makes a woman a leader. Big things start to come your way once people realize that it's not just a kind girl, but rather someone who really wants to make a difference in the world. You're listening to It Can Be You with Jordana. I'm here with Marielle Miller, the founder of Complice, and I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for being here on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So what I would love to start with is for those out there who don't know anything about you, who are you and how do you define yourself?
I will start with where I'm from because being Latina is really at the core of my identity. So I'm from Costa Rica, grew up between Costa Rica and Ecuador. I only moved to the U.S. when I was 18 for college and have stayed here ever since. So have been between Philadelphia, Boston, New York. And I think what really defines me is this love for the human brain and the human mind and creativity and connection. And so I love learning, I love challenging myself, and right now I also define myself as a first-time founder, building La Complice, so that's where I'm at right now.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, 18. Okay. I moved from Brazil when I was 13. I know it's like it's almost like a new world, right?
It's crazy. I socialized an entire day in English for the first time when I was 18 in college. And I remember coming back home and saying, that was so exhausting. I don't know if what I said made sense. I started saying, oh my God, a lot.
That's awesome. At least you can have a conversation, because when I moved, I didn't know a word of English. So my mom threw me in English school, and I was like, I don't know. It was so scary, but you adapt, right? And you go, adapt. That's amazing. Thank you. Marielle, what inspired you to create La Complice?
So La Complice is all about using technology to keep creative talent at the center of whatever we do. And we're really focused on helping e-commerce fashion brands boost their profitability by keeping creative talent at the center. And so we see a lot of technology ventures right now that try to replace humans, or, don't really appreciate the magic behind the human brain. And so what we want to do is really power those creative minds and let them shine while still being super successful on the business side, and giving brands the power to be as profitable as possible by using technology. And so what that means right now is two parts. One is an outfit generation tool that's based on influencer content. Mm-hmm. And the second part is image generation for non-creative brand assets. And the reason why those are the two things I'm focusing on is my sister's a content creator herself. Mm-hmm. So I knew there were a lot of things that happen in the content creation side, mm-hmm. where we could support both influencers and brands and help problem solve there. And my mom's a runway model, and so I knew on the image generation part there's also a lot of issues and mundane tasks that people don't really want to do, where we could use technology to help creative talent shine even more.
I love that. It actually reminds me, when you speak about technology and content creation, Clueless, The Closet, where the outfits will be put together, but I mean, much obviously more developed in many ways. But
it's Clueless. What's really funny is I think shoppers want to be met where they're at, mm-hmm. and humans don't like change. So we're all about meeting shoppers in their journeys, how they want to shop. So it's Clueless comes to brands in a very easy way, so that it doesn't change the way that you usually do things.
I love that so much. I feel like you've answered this based on growing up with your sister and your mother, but I want to go now to the little girl Marielle. Spiritually, actions, things that you did as a little girl. Does it stem from that to where you are today? Do you see things that you were around or doing that you're like, this is why I am who I am today?
Yes, absolutely. Little girl Marielle loved problem solving. She loved selling. One of my first toys was a cash register, and I was obsessed with numbers. So my dad brought me a Hello Kitty cash register back from one of his trips. And I told him, Dad, this isn't really multiplying properly. I can't do more than 2 times 2. It doesn't know that I'm trying to multiply 4 again. And he brought me a real cash register the next time he came back from a trip. Funny. And so one of my first real business toys was a legitimate cash register, like the ones you have in kiosks in the mall. So I know that the business entrepreneur has always been in me. And also the power to be kind. I think when I look at what I want to do now, it's been a lot of being able to help other girls. And it's mostly because in finding that business self, that little girl Marielle, I think, didn't understand that she could be the person that loved a Hello Kitty cash register and likes to multiply really complicated numbers.
I love that.
And understanding that the pinks and the calculators can coexist and be equally as powerful has been something that still to this day I live by. Just now I went to Diane von Furstenberg's celebration for Women's Day, and she said kindness is a currency and it compounds. And that really stuck with me. And when I think of little Marielle, I know that is something that I want to keep holding near and dear to me.
That's beautiful. And I love how it's full circle of you explaining how you can like the Hello Kitty and you can have that business side. And then years and years later, you have someone like DVF stating something like that, which really kind of almost, did you feel like it was almost a message of like everything you've always thought kind of coming to you in one sentence from someone that you admire, almost like a sign in a sense?
Totally.
That's beautiful.
Totally. And she is such an example of a woman that is unapologetically herself.
100%.
And, this is so funny, but when I took my SATs, I remember I wanted my pink Texas big graphic calculator, and it was pink. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, are people going to think I'm dumb because it's pink? Why? No one cares that it's pink. Embrace that it's pink.
I love that. That's beautiful. So I feel like in speaking with you, you seem, you grew up in Costa Rica, you came to the US when you were 18, you have an incredible education, that you went to Harvard, like you started your business. People watching could say, it just comes easy to her, this is all, like everything she's doing is perfect, like, I can't be that perfect, or I can't be that person watching you and your story. Can you walk me through hurdles, challenges that you faced to get to where you are and to be who you are today?
Of course. I will say, I think challenges are always the window to bringing out the best version of yourself. And it really doesn't feel that way in the moment. It feels everything is tumbling down. You struggle, but through those struggles, I think you learn so much about yourself and what you're here to do. Just now in June, I graduated from Harvard Business School, and it had been a lifelong dream of mine. Ever since I can remember, I knew I wanted to do something around business, and what better place than Harvard to do it and challenge myself in. And a couple days later, right after graduation, I got in a crazy car accident. And at that moment in time, I was playing around with the idea of being a full-time founder. I knew what I wanted to do with Complice, but I wasn't sold on committing to being a full-time founder. It scared me. It's a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of risk. The car accident was horrible. And in a weird way, I think it's one of the best things that could have happened to me. I was in recovery for months. I could not do any of the things that I had planned to do that summer. So I wanted to move back to New York. I did not move back to New York until this January. I wanted to travel and celebrate with all my friends. I was back home getting emergency surgeries, doing physical therapy, and really hitting pause. And what's crazy about this is that in this process, what it gave me is this unwavering commitment of wanting to do something that when I wake up, I am fully excited about. Because we tend to live life like every day is guaranteed. And I know from the outside this sounds so cheesy, but it really isn't. Every day is not guaranteed.
True.
And being able to wake up and be excited about what you're doing is now something that I really do not take for granted. And it's such a blessing to even have the opportunity to do that. And there's this professor at HBS named Reza Sachu, and he says, when you commit, magic happens. And that is so true. And at Complice, I'm really feeling that, having committed to a venture, and every single day making sure that you are giving your full attention to that dream plus excitement is something that I would have never been able to find without the car accident.
It's beautiful. I'm getting emotional. I'm trying to hold it together. The reason also, it's funny, but talk about signs, but you saying but to stay true to who you are, and you saying magic happens, that's crazy to me, because that's what I say all the time. Those exact words. I never heard anybody else use it, Oh. Sorry. Thank you for sharing. It was beautiful. And what I love so much about what you said is that, you know, even sitting here doing this interview has been like a lifelong dream of mine. So I love like setting your intentions to make things happen and just like really knowing that tomorrow we don't know if it's there. Even the next minute we don't know, right? And just like really doing what your path and like what makes you feel good and being around people that you feel good being around, making those choices. And I love that through everything that you went through, you know, you were able to take that as a positive and have it be your superpower that you can now share and inspire so many people. So thank you for that. So speaking of the being unapologetically you and all the things and being, you know, female and emotional and all the things that come with being female, how do you, you know, starting a business, being in these meetings and, you know, just being like very feminine and just the person that you are, how do you deal with that, you know, when it comes to people portraying or judging through seeing us as, you know, the personality traits that we have, smiley, giggly, like what's your take on that?
It's been a journey. Mm-hmm. It has been a journey. When I think back to when I started my career, I started in consulting, which could not be more black and white. I was doing finance cases. I was working with big CEOs in the world, and I inflected downwards and tried to tie my hair back before a meeting and wore black and white. And I love fashion. I used to dress in black and white every single day. And it has not been easy, but looking up to people like Diane, like yourself, who have opened this space to bring my full self to work and be successful and be powerful at the same time has been an incredible unlock to me. And in the same way, you know, I get a lot of Hispanic women right now reaching out to me in high school, in college, and saying, Marielle, you went to Harvard. How did you do that? Marielle, you are doing a startup in the US as a Latina. How are you doing that? What does that mean? How did you get into it? The other day, someone messaged me saying, what is the entrepreneurship mindset for a Latina? And I don't have all the answers. I really don't. I think a lot of it has been what we said before, commitment and a passion to learn, and luck. Luck is a big aspect of it. But the one thing is, I now challenge myself continuously to be able to open that space up as well. So my take on it is, in the same way that other women have shown me that I can be authentic and still do what I want to do, I promise to lead with authenticity and give other women the space to be themselves, whatever that may mean. Yeah. Bring your full self to work. The cognitive tax that it puts on us to think, I need to have a deeper voice. I need to tie my hair back. I need to, you know, whatever it is. Those are things that you should not be thinking before a meeting.
Yeah.
You're going in there, know your numbers, know your bullet points. You don't need to think about your hair bun right now. And so I think just making sure that people in my team and other women, we're a predominantly female team, know that that is a priority for me, immediately gives them the opportunity and the space to also bring their full selves to work.
I love that. And I also, when you say that, it makes me think a lot of people can see your story and they reach out to you and they say, how did you go to Harvard? How did you start a business? How did you? But success is not defined. There's no definition of what success is, right? And I think one thing that I've noticed with women, girls, but also like younger girls, is that they see someone who's successful and they say, for me to be successful, I have to do that. But I think we should all kind of take a step back and internally think to ourselves, what would make me happy? What would success be for me? And maybe it doesn't have to be the same path that you took. And if they can follow that inner voice of what will make them happy, they can too succeed, even if it's not the same story as you.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And that is the real meaning of authenticity. And by the way, I think it ties back to what we were talking about with the car accident.
Yeah.
What is it that if you wouldn't have a tomorrow, you would be okay with in the way you lived your life today?
Such a good question. I think everybody should ask themselves that.
Terrifying question.
Terrifying question. You just change your whole life on a whim. But it's a great question. So so inspiring, everything that we've been talking about. And I'm like, my mind is like, and I'm sure many people watching will feel the same way. So my question is, doing all of that, being, authentically you as a woman in business, what obstacles have you come across deciding to do that, deciding to be authentically you, deciding to just, show up, being your feminine self, all these things, meeting, like what obstacles have you come across? I'd love to know. And how have you dealt with those obstacles to be able to step away from that meeting going, I'm okay?
So many. My first manager gave me the feedback that I needed to have more of an executive presence after a big CEO meeting. And I remember coming back into the room, the team room, and breaking down to someone in the team. Started crying, didn't understand what I had done that didn't let me have an executive presence at the moment in time. I asked for feedback, as one does. I said, can we have more specific feedback? I would love to build an executive presence. And he said, you need to be more serious. You need to inflect downwards. You need to wear darker colors. A lot of the things that we've touched upon, but this is very real. This is something that was said to me straight on in the beginning of my career. And I did exactly that for a few years. I did it. I took it to heart and I said, I want to be an executive, so I'm going to build my executive presence. And it was not until an amazing partner at BCG, his name is Neil Zuckerman, saw me dressed up for a meeting we had with a huge publishing house, and I came in a full black suit. And he looked at me and he said, Marielle, don't you love fashion? And I said, I do. It was beautiful. I was wearing a beautiful black suit, let me tell you. He said, this is your chance to dress and I don't know, you're in a big publishing house that's all about fashion. Why are you dressed in a black suit? And it was the first time that I got permission to be more expressive. And I'm so thankful to Neil for that moment because it changed the way I had approached years in my career. And so I think those challenges are very, very real. And those obstacles are very real. But what you come to learn is that is your strength. It is the fact that you are dressing in colors that makes you interesting. It is the fact that you are warm that gets people to open up to you. It is your vulnerabilities that make you powerful and that make people want to connect to you. And understanding that flip side where you get rid of that cognitive tax, you get rid of thinking of other things, and you just focus on what you actually want to focus on is an untapped strength that I think, especially as women, is hard to find, especially as Latina women, is sometimes hard to find.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. What a good story. And it's so funny. I think so crazy, serendipitously, how all of this works. But I had a job when I was 22. Before I became an entrepreneur at 24, I never looked back. I've always opened businesses. But at 22, I had a job. And I went to work wearing like a frilly flowery dress. I was doing PR for Nina Ricci, Porsche Design brands, and I was like, it's a fashion job. And I remember some girls in the office made a comment that when I was sitting at the desk, because they could see my shoulder and because the desk was here, that they could that it looked like I was naked, which made no sense because I was covered up. So the president of the company said, maybe you should cover up more, and I was fully covered. The next day, I put on a turtleneck sweater,
Of course you did.
a black suit. My hair was up in a bun. I showed up at work, and the president goes, okay, you don't have to go extreme. And I'm like, no, I do. I don't want anyone to think I'm looking naked. Right? I literally, like, I made it a point, really, like, stamped it, you know, because it was so ridiculous to me. So for me, it didn't deter me. I didn't take their feedback and take it seriously. I thought it was very comical. And I was like, if they're going to tell me this, I'm going to go with the extreme to prove a point. And then from that day forward, no one ever said anything to me again. So I think it's like really the black suit, just like it's funny because it's great. No, but I love, it's still a, you know, we still have to work on the female in the industry thing in many ways, but it's good to have these conversations because people have to listen, and maybe the people that are still treating girls this way will watch and think twice before they do that the next time, which is great.
It's also hard because you look at the top and it's very few people that you see like yourself.
Yes, a lot. Oh, for sure. So now we're going to play a fun little game, and I'm going to ask you 3 quick questions, and I just want one word as an answer for each.
Love it.
You ready?
Yes. As ready as I'll be.
Okay, first question. How do you feed your mind?
Conversations.
Love that. Okay, how do you feed your body?
Listening.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Understanding what your body needs. Being kind to your body.
Love that.
And I think that's a big byproduct of the accident too. Being gentle and
That makes
compassionate.
sense.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. We should do that more often. How do you feed your spirit?
Gratitude.
Love that. Well, Marielle, this has been extremely inspiring to me and to, I'm sure, everyone watching. And you've really made, I think, everyone realize that it can be you. So thank you for being here.
Thank
it's been
you
a pleasure.
so much.
Thank you. Through our struggles and through accepting who we are and putting it out to the world is how magic happens. Follow your road and always live to your utmost potential because it can be you.